Chapter 55:15, Provocation. Ding-er enjoyed the envious gazes of the crowd. From this moment on, she was fundamentally different from them, as different as the clouds and the mud. However, Ding-er's sense of superiority disappeared the moment she saw Yun Chuji's deep gaze. Even if she had wings, she had to curl up in this dormitory. Otherwise, Cho-jio might break her wings. Ding-er immediately restrained the smug look on his face and said respectfully, "Team leader, you're back?" Yun Chujio was very satisfied with Ding-er's tactfulness. She said graciously, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and bring me the washing water." Ding-er did not even have the intention to resist. He went to fetch the washing water. Shen Wu looked at Yun Chujio with admiration. "Did you see that? The team leader was really awesome." Ding-er had already broken through to the first layer of the divine revelation realm, but he was still obedient. When they gathered the next day, Manager Yu told Yun Chujio what Altar Master Deng had told him before. Then, he said, "This time, it can be said to be an extrajudicial favor. You must not miss this opportunity. Although there are only 10 spots, no one knows who the winner is until the last moment. You must work hard to fight for it." Many people's eyes lit up when they heard Manager Yu's words, especially those who were already in the final assessment. It was as if they had grasped the last straw. After Manager Yu finished speaking, he ordered everyone to go to work. When his gaze swept past Yun Chuji's back, it was exceptionally cold. After leaving the heavenly dock, Chen Shi, who had been acting like a man with his tail between his legs, walked in front of Yun Chujio and said provocatively, "Cho-jio, aren't you capable? If you are capable, you should try to break through to the first layer of the divine enlightenment realm. In the future, we are worlds apart. You can continue to stay in the heavenly dock and suffer." Ding-er curled his lips and said, "What are you being arrogant for? Didn't you hear what Manager Yu said just now? As long as the top 10 of the assessment can pass the assessment, our group leader will definitely be first." Yun Chujio said lightly, "Ding-er, keep a low profile. If I accidentally get second place, where will your face go?" Chen Shi, she had seen shameless people before. This was the first time she had seen a group of shameless people. "You're really not afraid of the wind blowing your tongue out? First place? If you can get first place, I'm afraid it will rain red in the sky." Chen Shi said with disdain. "I don't know whether it will rain red rain in the sky or not. If you keep making noise here, I won't be polite." Yun Chujio took out a dagger and waved it. Chen Shi saw the malicious smile on the corner of Yun Chujio's mouth and immediately felt a little flustered. She left with a harsh sentence and took her away. Ding-er said fawningly, "Team leader, don't pay attention to that idiot. You will definitely get first place in the assessment. When the time comes, she will be angered to death." Wei Ba sighed at the side, "How can it be that easy? There are so many candidates in the ascending heaven dock, and there are many who are close to breaking through. It will be too difficult for them to break out of the encirclement. Moreover, leader's cultivation is, well, a little low. The prospects are not very optimistic." Most of the others had the same thoughts as Wei Ba. However, they were not as close as Wei Ba and Yun Chujio, so they did not dare to say what they thought in their hearts. They felt that even though Yun Chujio had a stomach full of schemes, she still had to rely on her strength in the assessment. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to get into the top 10. Yun Chujio smiled and did not say anything. Whether she could do it or not, they would know when the time came. On this day, the once every 3 months assessment arrived. Chapter 55:16, The Miserable Ding-er. All the candidates gathered in the big square of the sky-climbing dock. Everyone had different expressions. The candidates who had already broken through to the first layer of the divine enlightenment were naturally in high spirits. Their faces were full of impatience. Among the remaining people, those with higher cultivation levels were eager to try. They were very confident that they could get into the top 10. Most of them were anxious with a trace of hope mixed in. They hoped that a miracle would occur and they would be able to enter the top 10. A moment later, Altar Master Deng walked over with a few people, followed by the stewards. Yun Chuzhou scanned the clothes of those people. With a thought, she immediately understood the identity of these people. They were probably representatives of the major forces. Although Ascending Heaven Dock had always been under the jurisdiction of the Union of 10,000 Cities, the other forces still wanted to get involved. Therefore, it was normal for them to send people over during the assessment. Altar Master Deng said some pleasantries and then asked the candidates who had reached the first level of divine enlightenment to step out. Chen Shi and the others immediately suppressed their excitement and walked to the front. The judges glanced at them. Their cultivations were much higher than Chen Shi's and they could see their cultivations at a glance. Seeing that no one had any objections, Altar Master Deng was about to announce the results when an old man with a pointy mouth and monkey cheeks pointed at Ding and said, "This candidate's cultivation base is obviously unstable, so she can't be considered to have passed." Altar Master Deng frowned slightly and said, "Altar Master Deng, although her cultivation base is unstable, she has already broken through to the first level of the Divine Revelation realm." Before Altar Master Deng could finish his words, Altar Master Deng sneered, "What? As a judge, don't I even have this bit of power?" Altar Master Deng's eyes flashed with a hint of displeasure, but he couldn't insist. After all, whether Ding could pass or not had nothing to do with him. Therefore, he crossed out Ding Er's name on the list of candidates who passed. Ding never dreamed that the scene in front of her would happen. She was completely dumbfounded. She didn't even hear the order for her to return to the team until Chen Shi, who was beside her, tugged at her gloatingly. She then returned to the team of candidates in a daze. Yun Chujia's eyes flashed. She didn't miss the eye contact between Manager Yu and Manager Shi. It seemed that Ding had been implicated by her. Altar Master Deng suppressed the unhappiness in his heart and said to Manager Shi, "Manager Shi, announce the rules of the next assessment." Manager Shi glanced at the crowd and said, "Due to the heavy casualties in the Beast Tide last time, the Alliance Master has shown mercy and given you a chance to jump through the Dragon Gate like a carp. If you can get into the top 10 in the next assessment, you will pass. I hope you will do your best and do not disappoint the Alliance Master's expectations." After saying some polite words, Manager Shi got to the point. "The rules of this assessment are not complicated. The Alliance leader has ordered me to bring the illusory sky banner here. Later on, you will be sucked into the first layer of the purgatory of the illusory sky banner. There are a total of 5 stages in the first layer of the purgatory. Only those who pass the stage will be teleported out. The 10 people with the shortest time will win. Don't worry. Once the 10 winners are decided, I will release the rest from the banner." Yun Chuzhou listened to Manager Shi's words while paying attention to Manager Yu's expression on the other side. When she saw a flash of malice in his eyes, she knew that there was something fishy about the so-called illusory sky banner, and it was targeted at her. Then the question came, should she participate in this assessment? Chapter 55:17, The Illusory Sky Banner. Yun Chuzhou decided to participate without any hesitation. Without the heavenly lightning, she was not confident that she could break through to the first layer of the divine enlightenment realm in another 6 months, let alone another 6 years. Therefore, she had to seize this opportunity. Even if she knew that there was something fishy going on in the illusory sky banner, she could only do it without hesitation. Some of the examinees were confident that they could pass the next test, so they were not prepared to take the risk and gave up the chance to enter the illusory sky banner. Shen Wu and Wei Ba were a little hesitant. Their aptitude was not bad. Even if they could not pass the next test, they should be able to reach the first layer of the divine enlightenment realm the next time. Ding was also a little hesitant. He did not know whether he should wait for the next test or enter the illusory sky banner to try his luck. Yun Chuzhou guessed the thoughts of the 3 of them and said in a low voice, "If I pass the test this time, no one will protect you in the future, so you guys can follow me in." Shen Wu and Wei Ba also agreed. Besides, it was no big deal to go in and have a look, so they nodded. Ding thought more than the 2 of them. She suddenly understood why she was picked on by Manager Shi. It must be because of Chozhou. Then, if Chozhou really passed the test, Wouldn't she be tortured by Manager Yu if she stayed in the quenching fire workshop? However, could there be a plan against Cho Jiu in the illusory sky banner? Would she be implicated if she followed in? Ding Er felt that her brain was not enough. In the end, she gritted her teeth. After all, she had never suffered a loss when she followed Cho Jiu, so she would fight it out. Thus, she also gritted her teeth and nodded. Yun Chujiu looked at her heroic appearance and could not help but find it funny. She chuckled and said, "Don't worry, I have always been lucky. We will get what we want." As soon as Yun Chujiu finished her words, she heard the people who had entered the illusory sky banner line up. The people in front of them were sucked into the illusory sky banner one after another. Soon, it was Yun Chujiu's turn. Manager Shi's gaze paused on Yun Chujiu for a moment. He wanted the benefits that Manager Yu promised him. His eyes immediately flashed. The illusory sky banner was completely under his control. As long as he could bring this wretched girl to the second layer of purgatory, she would definitely die. Thinking of this, Manager Shi waved his hands. The hand gestures of the hand seals changed slightly. He was full of satisfaction as he waited for Yun Chujiu to be sucked into the second layer of the illusory sky banner. However, after he finished the hand gestures, Cho Jiu was still standing there. He frowned. Could it be that his hand gestures were wrong? He performed it again and saw that Cho Jiu was still standing there calmly. At this moment, the other judges saw that something was wrong and looked at him. Manager Shi was afraid that others would see through him, so he had to use the seal of the first layer of purgatory. However, after a while, he still couldn't put Yun Chujiu into the illusion sky banner. This time, he couldn't help but feel a little awkward. Altar Master Deng didn't know whether it was intentional or not, but he said, "Manager Shi, could it be that there's a problem with the illusion sky banner? Or did you forget how to make the seal?" Manager Shi was both angry and anxious. He was also puzzled. Why couldn't he put it in? Could it be that there was really a problem with the illusion sky banner? He gritted his teeth, bit his finger, and dripped the blood onto the illusion sky banner. He muttered something and made another seal. This time, he finally put He Xinjiu into the illusion sky banner. Manager Shi heaved a sigh of relief. Everything went smoothly after that. He put the rest of the people into the illusion sky banner. Chapter 55:18 was closed. Manager Shi cursed in his heart. No wonder Manager Yu wanted to kill that Cho Jiu. What a troublemaker. If it weren't for her, he wouldn't have lost a drop of his blood to consecrate this illusion sky banner. In his anger, he sent his spiritual sense into the illusion sky banner, preparing to find Yun Chujiu and teleport her to the second level of purgatory. However, his spiritual sense wandered around the first level of purgatory in the illusory sky banner for a while, but he didn't see Yun Chujiu. He was puzzled. Could it be that he had accidentally sent that stinky girl to another level? This was also good. It would save him the trouble. Manager Shi was relieved. He withdrew his spiritual sense and opened 5 tests. Then, he began to chat and laugh with the other judges. Manager Yu saw his expression and was sure that the matter had been settled. The pent-up anger he had accumulated over the past few days was finally relieved. The next step was that old thing, Altar Master Deng. What Manager Shi didn't know was that after his spiritual sense swept over, a crack was opened on a big iron pot, and He Xinjiu's little head appeared from inside. She only put away the big iron pot after she felt that no one was spying on her with their spiritual sense. After she was teleported inside, she quickly felt that there was a spiritual sense spying on her. She had an idea and hid inside the big metal pot. She also took off her spirit-concealing ring. She was sure that the spiritual sense was definitely from Manager Shi. As for why he was scanning inside, she didn't need to guess to know that he definitely didn't have good intentions. Her dark eyes rolled around. In order to avoid complications, she had to quickly pass the assessment inside. Otherwise, Manager Shi might cause some trouble again. While Yun Chujiu was thinking, she heard a commotion in front of her. Her heart skipped a beat, and she quickly ran over. When Yun Chuzhou ran over, she saw that the other candidates had already walked into a bronze door in front of her. There were 5 big words written on the door: first level of the purgatory. Yun Chuzhou pouted. Purgatory? He really overestimated himself. The devil was indestructible, so what was the point of refining it? Moreover, this illusory sky banner was not a divine weapon. With such an arrogant name, he was not afraid of losing his life. While this guy was complaining in his heart, he saw Ding waving at him. Shen Wu and Wei Ba were standing beside her. Yun Chuzhou collected her thoughts and walked over with a smile. She waved her claws and said, "Let's go. I'll bring you guys to challenge the trial." In fact, many people from Group 9 had also participated in the test. However, when they saw what had happened to Ding, they were a little hesitant. They were afraid that they would be implicated if they were with Yun Chuzhou during the test. Therefore, they hurriedly followed the crowd into the purgatory and avoided Yun Chuzhou. Yun Chuzhou was well aware of this. Everyone had their own choices. She did not force them. Besides, there were only 10 spots in total. If they were as sensible as Ding she would be in a bit of a dilemma. Just as Yun Chuzhou was thinking, she heard a loud bang. Yun Chuzhou and the others looked up and saw the bronze door closed. 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 Ding Er's heart was already miserable because he had been brushed off before, but now he had completely broken down. She wailed loudly. Her thick and sturdy body trembled like a small fallen leaf in the wind. There was a thick sense of hopelessness amidst the comical scene. It was over. She was completely finished. Manager, you hated them so much. She was afraid that she would not be able to pass the next assessment. She would definitely be sent to mine. Shen Wu and Wei Ba also looked dejected. Putting aside whether they could get into the top 10 or not, if they could not enter the purgatory, would they be trapped here and die? Chapter 55-19, Never Let Go of Her. Yun Chuzhou frowned and shouted at Ding "Don't cry." What's the use of crying? Ding felt that he hadn't recovered anyway. He was filled with anger and shouted at Yun Chuzhou, "Why are you yelling at me? I'm finished. My whole life is over. Even if I'm not sent to mine, I'll still be trapped here. I thought that if I hugged your thigh, I would have nothing to worry about. Who would have thought that not only did I not get any benefits, but now I'm actually implicated by you? Why am I so unlucky?" If I had known earlier. Ding saw Yun Chuzhou's deep eyes and could not continue speaking. Yun Chuzhou said indifferently, "If I had known earlier, what would you have done?" Ding took 2 steps back and mumbled, "If I had known earlier, I would have hugged your thigh. I wouldn't have let go of it." Shen Wu, Wei Ba, none of them were willing to submit to Ding. Yun Chuzhou was also shocked by Ding words. It seemed that Ding was even more shameless than her. Cough cough, he was more sensible than her. Yun Chuzhou softened her tone. "Don't worry, I'll bring you out. It's just a small illusory sky banner. At worst, I'll just destroy it." Ding and the others did not know if it was an illusion, but they felt that the ground seemed to tremble. Yun Chuzhou walked to the bronze door and said coldly, "Open it. If you don't open the 3 numbers, I'll split open a door myself." 1, 2, with a creak, the door opened a crack. Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. She had not been put into the illusion sky banner before, so she knew that the illusion sky banner must have a Qi Ling. As long as there was a Qi Ling, that would be her home ground. Ding and the others were dumbfounded. How could this work? The door was opened just by scaring them. Yun Chuzhou took the lead and walked in. Shen Wu and Wei Ba followed closely behind. Ding was the last one, and then, he was stuck. Ding damn it, I can't live anymore. Even this broken door is bullying me. In the end, Shen Wu and Wei Ba forcefully dragged Ding in. Ding was about to complain when he vaguely heard screams and noises coming from afar. They were probably trying to pass the first test. The four of them immediately walked forward. The more they walked, the more frightened they became. The surrounding walls were full of all kinds of torture murals, and the ground was full of bones. From time to time, there were even skeletal hands reaching out from the walls. It was simply terrifying. Shenwu was almost grabbed by the skeletal hands again. She was so frightened that she cried out repeatedly and hurriedly followed behind Yun Chujiu. This was because she discovered that she, Wei Ba, and Ding Er were attacked by the skeletal hands from time to time. However, the strange thing was that Cho Jiu had not been attacked once. Ding Er also noticed this and muttered in his heart, could it be that this skeleton is also afraid of evil people? Yun Chujiu looked at the skulls that occasionally appeared on the ground and couldn't help but think of Shui Wuji. When that idiot first saw her, he would occasionally use the fake skulls to scare her. Who would have thought that they would become life and death friends in the end? If she guessed correctly, Chi should be in the Divine Enlightenment continent. At that time, that idiot with the black chicken head would definitely show off Rui Er. Thinking about it, it was really infuriating. It was all the fault of that damned Gowei Batsao. If it wasn't for it, perhaps she and the pretty boy's little bean would have been able to join in the fun. Gowei Batsao, who was being scolded, it was also convinced. Why did this smelly girl scold it when she saw the skull? Who did it offend? Chapter 55-20, Get Lost. Yun Chujiu and the other three quickly caught up with the people in front of them. It was not because they were walking fast, but because they were so frightened by the horrifying scene in front of them that they did not dare to continue walking forward. Ding Er pursed her lips when she heard those people mumbling something like, it's too scary, and, if we go over, we will definitely be courting death. Make way, make way, make way. A bunch of cowards. What's there to be afraid of? Let me go over first. She had completely forgotten how scared she was when she saw those skeleton hands. When she saw the situation clearly, she wished she could sew her mouth shut and said embarrassedly, everything comes first, you guys came first, you guys go first. I'm not in a hurry. Everyone, at this time, Yun Chujiu walked to Ding Er's side and her gaze fell on a place about 100 feet ahead. The two walls on the left and right sides were filled with skeleton hands, and there were countless half-skeletons hanging above them. The hands kept waving, and the sound of their teeth making creaking sounds made one's hair stand on end. Occasionally, skeleton hands would appear on the ground. One could imagine the consequences if they were caught by these skeleton hands. There were also a few tragic corpses on the ground. Judging from their clothes, they were obviously candidates for the assessment. Wei Ba said weakly, team leader, let's not go there. Anyway, manager sure will let us out after a long time. It's not worth the risk. Shenwu and Ding Er did not say anything, but they nodded their heads like chickens pecking at rice. This place was too strange, so it was better not to take the risk. Yun Chujiu said lightly, just prop up the spiritual energy shield and walk over. It's not a big deal. After she said that, she lifted her leg and walked forward. Ding Er and the other two looked at each other and quickly followed. Not only did the three of them prop up the spiritual energy shield, but they also activated all of their treasures, afraid that something bad would happen to them. The rest of the examinees had looks of contempt on their faces. Did this Cho Jiu really take them seriously? It was no big deal. She would know how powerful she was in a short while. Yun Chujiu quickly walked to the place where the skeleton hands were wreaking havoc, and the skeleton hands began to wave wildly. Yun Chujiu snorted coldly. Get lost. Almost as soon as this guy's words fell, the skeleton hands and half of the skeleton seemed to have been frozen by someone, and they stopped moving. Yun Chujiu strolled into the room casually. Ding Er and the others quickly followed her. Indeed, it was better to lean against a big tree to enjoy the shade. Even the skeletons did not dare to provoke them if they followed this evil person, Cho Jiu. The people behind were all dumbfounded. How could this work? Seeing that Yun Chujiu and the other three had passed the first test leisurely, the remaining people could not stay any longer. Immediately, one of the candidates imitated Yun Chujio and shouted at the skeleton hands, "Scram." After that, there was no after. The word scram became his last words. Ding turned around and saw this scene. He was so scared that he trembled. In his heart, he was even more certain that he would not let go of Yun Chujio's thigh. He would not let go even if he was beaten to death. Yun Chujio did not care about what happened next. She continued to walk forward with Ding and the others. Although there were still skeletal hands that stretched out from both sides of the road from time to time, Ding and the others followed Yun Chujio closely. They did not encounter any trouble. In the end, there were still some candidates who relied on their spiritual weapons to pass the first test and caught up. They looked at Yun Chujio and the other three with some vigilance. After all, there were only 10 spots in total. They were all competitors. Chapter 55-21, Deja Vu. 15 minutes later, everyone stopped in their tracks. There was no skeleton hand in front of them, but a blood lake appeared. The candidate threw a low-level spiritual pet. The spiritual pet turned into a blood mist the moment it touched the surface of the lake. Everyone gasped in shock. Someone took out another low-level spiritual pet. The spiritual pet fell straight toward the surface of the lake. It was obviously impossible to fly over. Some people didn't give up. They took out a boat, but they could only watch as the boat turned into blood. Everyone's faces were filled with despair. They couldn't cross the blood lake no matter what. At this moment, Yun Chujio lifted her leg and stepped into the blood lake. The moment she stepped in, the lake water split into two, and a tunnel appeared in the middle. Ding Er's mouth was wide open. Oh my God! There was such a godly operation. She exclaimed as she followed behind, muttering, "I'm the team leader's lackey. Don't hurt me by accident." I'm on the team leader's side. Shen Wu and Wei Ba also quickly followed. Their hearts were also filled with shock. How could this work? The other candidates also quickly followed. However, the person at the front had just stepped into the tunnel when he let out a shrill scream and turned into a bloody mist. The others were so scared that they immediately shrank back. Even if they didn't pass the test, it was better than losing their lives. After Ding Yar followed Yun Chujio through the blood lake, he was very proud when he saw those people who looked desperate on the other side. Sometimes, choosing was more important than working hard. The next two tests were exactly the same as before. Yun Chujio didn't use any spiritual power and led Ding and the others through. Soon, they arrived at the last round. There was a black stone wall in front of them, and a sinister voice could be heard, "Why aren't you kneeling when you see me? Quickly kneel down." Ding and the other two could not help but kneel on the ground when they heard the sinister voice. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. Why did this voice sound so familiar? Just as she was thinking about it, the voice sounded again, "How dare you? Why aren't you kneeling?" Ding was so scared that he quickly pulled on Yun Chujio's skirt, signaling her to kneel down. Yun Chujio ignored Ding and said indifferently, "Why do I feel that your voice sounds familiar? Have we met before?" "No, impossible. I've never seen you before. I don't know you either. Stop talking nonsense and kneel down quickly. Otherwise, I won't be polite." The voice said in a flustered tone, but it was clearly a little flustered. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. Skeleton? Purgatory? This voice? And those little tricks from before? Yun Chujio immediately had an answer in her heart. She sneered and said, "Bone spirit, isn't it good to be alive?" What bone spirit? I don't know what you're talking about. Hurry up and kneel down, or I won't hold back. I'll kill you." This time, even Ding and the others could hear the panic in the voice, and there was even a hint of trembling. Yun Chujio curled her lips. This voice was clearly the red skeleton from the inheritance prison. Back in the ghost realm, she had entered the inheritance prison several times to deal with this bone spirit. In the end, it even helped her take in those Purine girls for a period of time. Yun Chujo said indifferently, you didn't stay well in the inheritance prison, so why did you come to the illusion sky banner? Are you so bored that your balls hurt? But that's true, you don't have any eggs at all. The voice immediately felt ashamed and angry, and scolded loudly, you stinky girl. You shameless ugly freak. You don't have any eggs. Shameless. Chapter 55-22 Met the red skeleton again. Yun Chujo was not angry because she did not have eggs to begin with. She said lightly, alright, since we are old acquaintances, let's meet. Don't you like young ladies the most? Here, I brought 3 for you. While Ding-er and the other 2 were stunned, a red skeleton appeared in front of everyone. Those 2 young ladies are alright. Are you sure this is a young lady? Although the red skeleton did not have eyes, Ding-er could still feel its intense disdain. Ding-er gritted his teeth in his heart. Damn bone spirit. He deserved to be scolded by the team leader. It would be better if the team leader broke him into pieces. Yun Chujia's gaze swept over the red skeleton. Tell me, why did you come here from the prison of inheritance? The red skeleton said proudly, the purgatory in the illusion sky banner is just a part of the prison of inheritance. Let me tell you this, the illusion sky banner is just a courtyard for me. I'm not usually here. After all, this place is full of grievances. How can it be as carefree as the prison of inheritance? I just don't know which idiot used blood as a sacrifice to lure me here. Fuck, I'll teach him a lesson later. A part of the inheritance prison? She had previously felt that the red skeleton was hiding a lot of things from her. Now that she looked at it, it was as she had expected. The red skeleton glanced at Yun Chujia's deep gaze. It quickly said, I didn't mean to hide it from you back then. This illusory sky banner was only recently refined by someone. Before it was refined, there was no way to open the purgatory inside. Yun Chujo did not believe his nonsense, but now was not the time to settle the score with him. It was better to pass the test first. Alright, I don't have time to waste with you. Give me a few of the treasures in the purgatory and send us out. The red skeleton said helplessly, it's not that I'm stingy, but there are no treasures in the purgatory. You'd better leave as soon as possible. Yun Chujo sneered and stepped forward to kick the red skeleton into pieces. Do you have it or not? Yes, yes. Little lady, please stop kicking it. The red skeleton said with a sobbing voice. She hated the person who sacrificed her blood in her heart. Damn it, if it wasn't for that idiot who summoned her, would she have to suffer such an undeserved disaster? This was great. Not only would it bleed, but this wretched girl also knew that the illusion sky banner was related to it. In the future, she might torture it whenever she had nothing to do. Why was its life so miserable? It subconsciously neglected one thing. It could have directly teleported Yun Chujo out without showing itself, but it was unwilling and wanted to take revenge. Who would have thought that Yun Chujo would see through it instead of taking revenge? The red skeleton quickly reassembled its parts. In a hurry, it even put its 2 arms on the wrong side. It was as comical as it could be. Ding-er saw it from the side and felt relieved. It deserved it. It deserved it. Where's the treasure? Yun Chujo asked coldly. The red skeleton kneeled on the ground with a plop. Great aunt, this is only my courtyard. There really is no treasure here. If I lie to you, I will never grow an egg. Yun Chujo, as if it could grow that thing. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes. It doesn't matter if you don't have any treasures. Aren't there other candidates here? You can scare them and ask them to hand over all their valuables. Well, split it 30-70. I'll split it 70-30. How about that? Chapter 55-23 was too shameless. When Ding-er and the others heard Yun Chujia's words, they were all dumbfounded. It was too sinister. It was too shameless. It could actually come up with such a wicked idea. It was blatantly harming others for its own benefit. The red skeleton clearly did not expect Yun Chujo to come up with such a method. It was stunned at first, then it said excitedly, "Little great aunt, you are indeed my little great aunt. You are so smart. This plan is good, but isn't 30/70ths a little inappropriate?" Yun Chujo glanced at it. "How about 20/80ths? You are 20/80. The red skeleton, you are only 20. Forget it, forget it. 30/70ths it is. I will go and threaten them now. You wait here." Yun Chujo curled her lips. "If you dare to hide it, HMPH. The thought that the red skeleton had just had instantly vanished. Could this wretched girl be able to read minds? She could guess what it was thinking. What the hell? The red skeleton quickly returned with a bunch of storage rings and said smugly, "That bunch of cowards. I called out all the storage rings with just a little scare. Little ant, come, let's split the spoils. I can't wait." The corners of Ding-er and the other two's mouths twitched. The only one who could talk about splitting the spoils so righteously was probably this skeleton. Yun Chujo did not have the time to look carefully at the things in the storage ring. She just gave some to the red skeleton according to the number and kept the rest in her storage ring. The red skeleton gritted its teeth and put away its small pile of things unwillingly. "I will think of a way to get the illusion sky banner in the future. When that time comes, I can often come in and play with you. Aren't you very happy?" Yun Chujo said with a smile. The red skeleton almost howled. Happy? It was not a sadist. However, when it thought about it, this wretched girl was just a weakling now. There was no way for it to get its hands on the illusion sky banner. What was there to be afraid of? Hence, it said against its heart, "Happy, I'm really too happy. About that, I'll send you guys out now. Don't delay the official business." Yun Chujo naturally knew what the red skeleton was thinking. However, she saw through it and did not say it out loud. She nodded and said, "All right, send us out." The red skeleton immediately sent Yun Chujo and the others out of the illusion sky banner. Manager Shi and the others were chatting because they felt that it would take a few hours for someone to pass the test. After all, it was 5 tests. Therefore, when they saw Yun Chujo and the others being sent out, they were all stunned. Especially Manager Shi and Manager Yu, their faces were ashen. Altar Master Deng was very happy. He did not expect that Chojo, this little girl, was so lucky that she actually passed the test. He quickly ordered the people at the side to record the names of Yun Chujo and the other 3. The top 4 would definitely pass the test. Manager Shi's face was very gloomy. He was thinking of finding an excuse to invalidate the results of Yun Chujo and the other 3. At this moment, the candidates who were waiting for the test were sent out one after another. However, the candidates who were waiting for the test had a complicated look on their faces. Those who were ranked in the top 10 were better, but those who were ranked behind had a miserable look on their faces. Fuck, not only did they fail the test, they even put all their wealth into it. They were so unlucky. Could the mastermind be that Manager Shi? What assessment? He was clearly taking the opportunity to amass wealth. He was too fucking shameless. Chapter 55-24, Backlash. Altar Master Deng saw that more and more people were being sent out, so he said to Manager Shi, "Manager Shi, the top 10 candidates have come out. You can release the rest of the candidates." Manager Shi said with a fake smile, "Okay, but before that, let me be blunt. The results of the first 4 candidates don't count." Altar Master Deng immediately frowned and said, "What did you say?" "The 4 of them must have cheated. The reason is very simple. There is not a single stain on their clothes. Even their hair is not messy. Clearly, they relied on some disgraceful means to pass the test," said Manager Shi with a sneer. Altar Master Deng thought that his temper was not bad, but he was also quite angry at Manager Shi's words. This was clearly a deliberate attempt to find fault with him. He really had nothing to say. At this moment, Yun Chujia's clear voice rang out, "Manager Sure, you were the one who brought the illusion sky banner here. You were also the one who suggested the assessment method. Not to mention that we don't have the ability to do so, even if we really did use some kind of method, it's because you didn't think it through. What does it have to do with us? How dare you? How dare you contradict me? Men, take him away and kill him." Manager Sure said viciously. He was just a pig. How dare he argue with him? He was really courting death. Ding-er and the other two were so frightened that their faces turned ashen. They looked at Yun Chujio worriedly. However, there was no fear on Yun Chujia's face. She sneered and said, "I'm just stating the facts. Previously, you removed Ding-er's qualification for promotion for no reason. Now you want to remove our results. No matter how I look at it, it looks like you're taking revenge for your own personal vendetta. Let me give you a piece of advice. People do what they do, and the heavens are watching. Be careful not to suffer retribution." Manager Sure was so angry that his face turned red. He did not care about his status and immediately stood up from the judges' seats. He actually wanted to kill Yun Chujio with his own hands. The other judges looked at each other, but no one moved. On the other hand, anger appeared on Altar Master Deng's face. Just as he was about to stop him, the illusory sky banner that was floating in the air suddenly shot out a red light. The red light landed on Manager Sure's face, and almost instantly, Manager Sure turned into a pool of blood. At the same time, the candidates in the illusory sky banner were thrown to the ground, and the illusory sky banner fell to the ground. No one had expected such a turn of events. For a moment, no one made a sound, and there was dead silence. How did the illusory sky banner kill Manager Sure? Did he really suffer retribution? In the end, Altar Master Deng was the first to react. He walked to the ground and put the illusory sky banner into his storage ring. This was an item of the Myriad City Alliance. Naturally, it could not fall into the hands of outsiders. He was silent for a moment. He cupped his fists at the other judges and said, "Previously, Manager Sure used blood as a sacrificial seal. I reckon that he suffered a backlash. I will report this matter to the Alliance leader truthfully. If you all need to testify, please do not decline." The judges were clearly shocked by the strange scene in front of them. When they heard Altar Master Deng's words, they nodded their heads in agreement. They muttered in their hearts. No wonder there were rumors in the past that this illusory sky banner was very strange. Therefore, even though this thing was very extraordinary, it had always been left idle in the warehouse of the Myriad City Alliance. Manager, you had never thought that Manager Sure would die just like that. He was both afraid and unwilling. He took a step forward and said, "Doc Lord, although Manager Sure unfortunately died, his previous decision should not be abandoned. Chojio and the other three should have been disqualified. Furthermore, Chojio contradicted Manager Sure and should have been executed." Chapter 55-25 Passed the test. Altar Master Deng's face immediately darkened. Chojio and the other three have low cultivations. It's impossible for them to tamper with the illusion sky banner. Manager Sure's words are simply nonsense. Manager Yu was furious when he saw that Altar Master Deng was determined to protect Yun Chujio and the other three. However, he could only swallow his anger no matter how dissatisfied he was. He was furious in his heart. So what if she passed the assessment? When she reached the Divine Enlightenment continent, there would still be plenty of opportunities to kill her. Altar Master Deng did not bother with Manager Yu anymore. Instead, he announced the names of those who passed the assessment. When the other members of Group 9 saw the beaming faces of Ding-er, Shenwu, and Wei Ba, their intestines turned green with regret. Especially Yu Qi. She was not too far away from Yun Chujio when she was standing outside the first level of the purgatory. However, in order to avoid being implicated by Yun Chujio, she deliberately hid in the crowd. Now, she naturally felt extremely regretful. However, what was the use of regretting? There was only a moment of opportunity. If she did not grasp it, she would lose it forever. Chen Shi did not expect Yun Chuzhou to actually pass the assessment. Her face could not help but look a little embarrassed. She was afraid that Yun Chuzhou would ridicule her. She lowered her eyebrows and looked down, trying her best to reduce her presence. Yun Chuzhou did not have the time to compete with her. She was now thinking about how to kill Manager Yu. She had never been a saint. Manager Yu had repeatedly targeted her. Was he still keeping her for the new year? However, those who had passed the assessment would soon follow the judges to the Divine Enlightenment continent. They did not have the time or opportunity to make a move. While Yun Chuzhou was pondering, the Gowei Batsao in her dantian began to flatter and act cutely. Yun Chuzhou slightly raised her eyebrows, and then a faint smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Shen Wu happened to see her smile, and his heart immediately trembled. Chou Jiu showed such a sinister smile again. Someone was going to be unlucky. Altar Master Deng said some more encouraging words, and then dismissed those who hadn't passed the assessment. He took Yun Chuzhou and the others to the Divine Enlightenment continent with the judges. After leaving the heavenly dock, many people looked back for a while, then turned around and continued on their way. From this moment on, they could be considered to have successfully ascended and officially become a member of the Divine Enlightenment continent. No one noticed that a small purple Gowei Batsao slipped out of Yun Chuzhou's sleeve. If they wanted to go to the Divine Enlightenment continent, they had to go through the Immemorial River, and if they wanted to go through the Immemorial River, they had to go to Jinsha Bay, which was 200 miles away from Baili. Altar Master Deng looked at the time and said, "We have to get to Jinsha Bay before nightfall and spend the night there. Well, cross the river tomorrow morning." Everyone knew how dangerous the Immemorial River was at night, so they had no objections and immediately sped up. Yun Chuzhou found that everyone was walking, and she was puzzled. Even if it was forbidden to fly here, it would be good to get a few spirit beasts to carry them. How stingy! In fact, she didn't know that the climate of the Eternal River was cold. The ordinary spirit beasts of the Divine Enlightenment continent couldn't withstand the cold at all. Moreover, even if they could catch some cold demon beasts, this place wasn't too far from the Golden Sand Bay, so there was no need to go through so much trouble. Before sunset, everyone rushed to the Golden Sand Bay. There were a few houses on the bank of the Golden Sand Bay, which were specially reserved for the people crossing the river to stay. The night was peaceful. The next morning, everyone got up and hurried. They had to pass through the hard ice area before sunset and reach the water area of the Eternal River. With the spirit ship, it would be much easier. After all, inside the spirit ship, they could resist the cold even at night. Chapter 55-26, Ice Shock. Just as everyone was hurrying on their way, Altar Master Deng received a message. His expression immediately became complicated. Someone beside him asked, "Altar Master Deng, what's wrong?" "Manager Yu was drunk last night. This morning, he was found dead on his bed." "He was strangled to death," Altar Master Deng said. On one hand, he felt very relieved because of Manager Yu's death. On the other hand, he felt a little relieved. Fortunately, he was not in ascending heaven dock. Otherwise, Manager Yu's death would inevitably be blamed on him. However, although Manager Yu's cultivation was not as good as his, it was not too bad. Even if he was drunk, he should not have been strangled so easily. Who did it? The Gowei Batsao in Yun Chuzhou's dantian was showing off. Even if it could not speak, Yun Chuzhou knew that it was taking credit. Yun Chuzhou praised the Gowei Batsao, but she also knew that the Gowei Batsao was a fluke. If not for Manager Yu being so drunk, Gowei Batsao might not have been able to find a chance to make a move in such a short time. Everyone discussed this matter for a while before putting it aside and rushing forward at the fastest speed. Although Jinsha Bay was much narrower than other rivers, it was still endless. Everyone did not dare to stop for fear of delaying the journey. It was better in the morning, but after the afternoon, when their physical strength had decreased, the speed of their journey had slowed down a lot, and they all looked tired. Although Yun Chuzhou was a pervert, she was also a little tired. She cursed in her heart. If only the hard ice had broken, then they could directly take the boat. Just as she was thinking about it, a deafening crack sounded. Everyone was shocked. They looked up and saw that a huge crack had appeared on the ice in the distance, and the crack was still expanding. Yun Chujio, this had nothing to do with her. She was just thinking about it. At this moment, cracking sounds came from all directions. The faces of Altar Master Deng and the others suddenly turned pale, and they even began to tremble. It was over. They were doomed. At this moment, countless cracks appeared on the ice surface around them, and they were rapidly expanding like a spider web. A judge from the Academy of 10 Directions said dejectedly, "An ice quake. We have encountered an ice quake that is rarely seen in 1,000 years. We won't be able to survive." The others also had despair on their faces. Even if they had heaven-defying abilities, they could only wait for death on this vast ice surface. Coincidentally, they were now in the middle of the ice surface. Whether it was to return or head to the river water area, it was too late because the ice surface would completely collapse soon. Yun Chujio frowned and walked to Altar Master Deng's side and asked, "Altar Master Deng, what is an ice quake?" Altar Master Deng's face was pale as he said, "An ice quake occurs extremely occasionally in the Eternal River. However, the time interval is not fixed, but it only happens once every 1,000 years. I didn't expect that we were so unlucky to encounter an ice tremors today." Yun Chujio was speechless. What was the use of talking about this? She should talk about what an ice tremors was. Fortunately, Altar Master Deng finally got to the point. "Do you see the cracks on the ice? Soon, these immemorial ice, which is usually very hard, will break. At that time, we will definitely die. And then..." Chapter 55-27, I have an idea. Yun Chujio took a deep breath. "I mean, what will happen after the ice breaks? Will the ancient ice sink to the bottom of the water? If we sink to the bottom of the water, can we escape by boat?" The judges of the Academy of 10 Directions glared at her. Sink to the bottom of the water? Escape by boat? Are you a pig's brain? Yun Chujio resisted the urge to fly into a rage and looked at Altar Master Deng. Fortunately, Altar Master Deng was more reliable. Although he looked panicked, he still explained, "After the surface of the ice breaks, it will not sink to the bottom of the water. Instead, it will roll violently in the water as if the water is boiling. Due to the impact of the ice, the spirit ship cannot maintain its balance and will be overturned when it enters the water. Moreover, the edges of the ice are very sharp. The spirit ship can't withstand it and will soon disintegrate." The judges of the 10 Directions Academy lamented, "Even the spirit ship can't withstand the edges of the ice. How can our bodies withstand it? Even if we are lucky enough to dive to the bottom, the temperature below is extremely terrifying. We will freeze to death. Not to mention, there were also many ferocious sea beasts. We are doomed." Yun Chujio's eyes flashed. Others might die, but she would not die. She could just dive to the bottom directly. She had water-repellent beads and small flames. She would neither drown nor freeze to death. As for the sea beasts, hee. Because she was confident, Yun Chujio was much calmer than the others. She was thinking if there was a way to help the others escape. It was not that she was overflowing with sympathy, but if she was the only one who survived, it would not be easy to explain. Everyone stood on the spot in despair. It was useless to run, they could only wait for death. Some took out their voice transmission talismans and told their friends and relatives about their last words. Some cried in despair, and some were still scared silly. Ding Shen Wu, and Wei Ba surrounded Yun Chujio, their faces filled with despair and fear. Ding saw that Yun Chujio's expression was relatively calm compared to the others, and her dark eyes kept rolling around. A glimmer of hope rose in her heart. "Team leader, do you have a way to get us out of here?" Ding asked with a trembling voice. Chen Shi heard Ding Er's words and said in a crazed manner, "She's going to get us out of here. Stop dreaming. We won't be able to survive. We're dead. Yun Chujo ignored Ding-er and Qinshe. She continued to stare at the continuously cracking ice surface, her eyes changing unpredictably. Ding-er saw the situation and did not ask any more questions. He also ignored the crazy Qinshe. He prayed in his heart that Yun Chujo could think of a way. Yun Chujo thought for a long time, but she couldn't think of a good idea. In the face of a natural disaster, the power of humans was too insignificant. Although she could give these people some waterproof beads, they were basically useless. The low temperature below would also freeze them to death. Therefore, it was best to stay on the spirit ship. It would be great if the spirit ship didn't capsize. Yun Chujia's eyes suddenly lit up. She had thought of a way. Altar Master, I wonder how long this ice tremor will last. Yun Chujo asked. 3 to 10 hours. When that time comes, the hard ice will reassemble. After Altar Master Deng finished speaking, he saw that Yun Chujia's face showed some joy. He could not help but sigh. Did this little girl think that she could endure it in a shorter time? They wouldn't be able to endure even an hour, let alone 3 to 10 hours. Altar Master, I have an idea. Although it might not work, we can try. Yun Chujo said with a faint smile. Chapter 55-28. If there was no ice block. When the people around heard that Yun Chujo had a solution, they all focused their eyes on her. Even if many people did not believe that she had a solution, they still had a glimmer of hope in their hearts. What if she really did have a solution? If she could live, who would want to die? Altar Master Deng looked at Yun Chujia's smiling face and could not help but think of the day when the sea beasts besieged the city. A glimmer of hope rose in his heart and he asked with some urgency, what solution? When the ice breaks, we will move to the spirit ship. Before Yun Chujo could finish her words, the judge from the Academy of 10 Directions said in a bad mood, you are just trying to attract attention. I thought you had thought of a good idea. Even if you didn't say it, don't you think we know how to take a ship? But what was the use? Although the spirit ship is strong, it can't withstand the sharp edges of the ice. At most, it will fall apart in an hour. Moreover, when the surface of the water tumbles and the ice hits it, the spirit ship will capsize in an instant. Shut the fuck up. If you want to live, then listen to me. If you don't want to listen, then get lost. Yun Chujo had endured him for a long time and finally flew into a rage. The judge's face was livid with anger. Just as he was about to fly into a rage, Altar Master Deng tried to smooth things over. Superintendent Zhang, the situation is critical now. You should listen to Chojiu first. Superintendent Zhang snorted coldly and did not say anything else. He did not have to fight with a little girl. It was just that this little girl really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He wanted to hear what she could do. Seeing that he was silent, Yun Chujo said, there is only one thing we need to worry about when we move to the ship, and that is the impact of ice. If there is no ice impact, the spirit ship will not be damaged. If there is no ice impact, the spirit ship will not capsize. So we just need to ensure that the ice does not get close to the spirit ship. Superintendent Zhang could not help but say, that's easy for you to say. The ice won't listen to you. If you say that you won't let them get close, then they won't get close? Yun Chujo glanced at him. They won't listen to me, but just think of a way to make them listen to me feasible. They had at least grasped a life-saving straw. Even Superintendent Zhang was delighted. He had completely. Superintendent Zhang curled his lips. He was about to speak when he heard Yun Chujo continue, we will place some things around the spirit ship that are large in size, light in weight, and can float on the surface of the water. This will help us reduce the force of the impact of the ice. Also, don't forget that we still have spirit beasts. Although they are not enough to block the hard ice, it is still possible to slightly change the direction of the hard ice or slow down the impact. The ice shock will only last for 10 to 10 hours. As long as we work together, we can completely endure it. Everyone was stunned at first, then revealed a happy expression. Although they were not sure whether Yun Chujia's method was feasible, they had at least grasped a life-saving straw. Even Superintendent Zhang was delighted. He had completely forgotten that he was still targeting Yun Chujio just now. Everyone hurriedly searched the storage ring for things that met the conditions that Yun Chujio had mentioned. The more people, the more power. They really did find some things like light snow wood and giant calabashes. At this time, the ice surface around them had already begun to crack. There was a faint rumbling sound coming from under the ice surface. It was likely that it would soon start to churn. Yun Chujia's gaze deepened. We cannot wait passively. Otherwise, the hard ice beneath our feet would suddenly crack, and we might fall into the water if we are not careful for a moment. Dock Master, later, when there is enough time to place the spirit ship on the surface of the water, you can release the spirit ship. It is safer for us to move it to the ship. Chapter 55-29 added insult to injury. Altar Master Deng had no other choice at the moment. He gritted his teeth and decided to listen to Yun Chujia's arrangements. After a while, when the river ahead began to gush out, Altar Master Deng released the spirit ship, and everyone jumped onto the spirit ship. After everyone boarded the ship, they followed Yun Chujia's instructions and threw the floating objects near the spirit ship. Then, they paid close attention to the situation around them. The ice surface had not completely shattered yet, so it was not particularly dangerous at the moment. There was no situation like boiling water. Even so, everyone's heart was still in their throats as they stared at the ice surface with full vigilance. After a quarter of an hour, the entire water surface was like boiling water, setting off huge waves. The broken pieces of ice began to drift crazily, colliding with each other. Everyone's eardrums were buzzing with the sound of countless collisions. The spirit ship was thrown up and down by the waves. If it wasn't for the fact that this spirit ship was specially made, these waves would be enough to jolt it into pieces. At this time, there were already pieces of ice crashing towards the spirit ship. Yun Chujio shouted loudly, "What are you standing there for? Release the spirit beast and change the direction of the ice, quickly." The people who were already scared silly finally regained their senses and hurriedly released the spirit beast. Just as Yun Chujio had said, although the ice blocks were very big and their weight was also very shocking, they were still floating in the water, so the spirit beasts could still change the direction of the ice blocks. Although other than the water spirit roots, the other spirit beasts with spirit roots were limited in the water, but the more people there were, the more strength they had. From the looks of it, they could still hold on. Seeing that the situation was still under control, Yun Chujio did not release Goei Batsao. She stood on the deck and commanded everyone to protect the spirit ship from the impact of the ice. As time passed, everyone's nervous mood slightly relaxed. As long as they could hold on until the end of the ice tremor, although they might encounter extreme cold weather, it was still much better than the current situation. At this moment, Wu Yun suddenly appeared in the sky. The rolling momentum of the dark clouds was even more terrifying than the current wind and waves. Everyone's heart tightened. Could it be that it was going to rain? Ever since records began, it did not seem to rain in this ancient river. Why was it going to rain now? Why were all these unlucky things caught up by them? They were simply extremely unlucky. However, when they thought about it, although the rain was difficult to deal with, it was not to the point where their lives were in danger. If they were willing to let it rain, then so be it. They could only accept it. However, they soon realized that they were wrong. Extremely wrong. Because there was a hole in the sky, a bolt of purple heavenly lightning descended from the sky and headed straight for their spirit ship. The thick purple heavenly lightning shocked everyone. Purple heavenly lightning? Fortunately, Yun Chujio shouted from the side, "Spirit beast." Everyone subconsciously commanded the spirit beast to protect the spirit ship. Even so, the mast of the spirit ship was still broken. Everyone's heart immediately surged with endless despair. Originally, there was not much hope for survival, but now they were actually struck by lightning again. This was because they were afraid that they would not die. What sin did they commit to deserve such a punishment? At this moment, the deck was already filled with whales. Everyone's hearts were as dead as ash. It was over. They definitely wouldn't survive. No one noticed that at this moment, Yun Chujia's eyes were not filled with fear. Instead, they were filled with surprise and joy. Oh my! Which big sister angel was kind-hearted? Chapter 55:30 Using one's body to attract the lightning. Hei Shinjo suppressed the joy in her heart and held back the tears of happiness in her eyes. She said, Altar Master, there's no other way now. I'm trying to attract the heavenly lightning away. If I'm lucky enough to succeed, everyone will be saved. Altar Master Deng said in shock, What? You want to attract the heavenly lightning away? Let's not talk about whether you can attract it away or not. Even if you can, you will definitely die. Do you want to die? Yun Chujo bit her lips. Otherwise, she was afraid that she would laugh out loud. She simply lowered her head and said, Altar Master, although we have only known each other for a short time, I have always treated you as my elder. If it wasn't for you, I might have already been killed by Manager Sure. Moreover, the people on the ship are also my classmates in a sense. All the judges are my teachers. If sacrificing my life can save everyone, I am willing. Time is of the essence. Don't say anything else. We will meet again in the next life. Hei Shinjo jumped off the spiritual boat and landed on a piece of floating ice. She pointed at the sky and cursed, Listen up, you bastards. Come and chop me if you can. Otherwise, I will curse your ancestors. What's the point of chopping that broken boat? Come and chop me. If you admit defeat, you will be my grandsons. If you don't chop me to death today, you'll be the shame of the heavenly thunder world. You'll be just a small fry that can't stand up to the public. A bolt of heavenly lightning was already heading towards the spirit ship. Hearing Yun Chujia's curses, it forcefully turned around and hacked towards Yun Chujo. Yun Chujo did her best to leap towards the floating ice at the side. The heavenly lightning struck the floating ice from before, and the huge floating ice was instantly split into two halves. When Yun Chujo caught a glimpse of it, her heart couldn't help but beat faster. Oh my, the heavenly lightning in the divine enlightenment continent seemed to be much more powerful than the heavenly lightning in the heavy cloud continent. However, this fellow was very confident. If she jumped a few more times, she would dive into the water. No matter how powerful the heavenly lightning was, it wouldn't be able to kill her. Therefore, after she jumped a few times on the ice floe, she was struck by a heavenly lightning and dissipated into the cracks of the ice floe. Everyone on the spirit ship witnessed the entire process, and their faces were filled with gratitude and sadness. Altar Master Deng had mixed feelings in his heart. Although he had some intention to help Yun Chujo, it was under the premise that it did not involve his own interests. He did not expect this little girl to be willing to sacrifice her own life to save him. It really made him feel both moved and guilty. Superintendent Zhang's face was filled with shame. He had reprimanded the little girl several times before, but reality proved that he had underestimated her. She had really thought of a way to save everyone's lives. Now, she had sacrificed herself for the sake of everyone's safety. It really made him feel ashamed. The rest of the judges were also touched. The people at the heavenly dock were even more touched. Ding Er, Shen Wu, and Wei Ba were already crying out loud. Even Chen Shi had mixed feelings. She didn't expect Cho Jiu to sacrifice herself to save them. She was simply too stupid. Was there such a stupid person in this world? If she had known earlier that she was so kind to the point of being stupid, she wouldn't have bothered with her. Unfortunately, she was already dead. It was useless to say all this. However, the dark cloud hadn't dispersed yet. It wouldn't continue to cleave down, right? Many people had the same thoughts as Chen Shi. The dark cloud in the sky had no intention of dissipating. If it continued to cleave down, Cho Jiu's sacrifice would be in vain. Chapter 55-31 Are you really still alive? Just as everyone was worried, they were pleasantly surprised to find that the heavenly lightning struck toward the water not far away, but it did not strike their spirit ship again. Moreover, as the heavenly lightning continued to strike down, the floating ice around them was cut into countless pieces, which made it more convenient for them to protect the spirit ship. 4 hours later, the ice began to gather and then began to freeze again. While everyone was delighted, they noticed that Wu Yun in the sky shook violently a few times and then floated away, as if he was exasperated. Everyone felt that they must have seen wrongly. Putting aside whether Wu Yun would have human emotions, even if he did, as someone who held the power of life and death, Wu Yun would not be exasperated. It was already midnight, and the temperature on the ice was frighteningly low. Therefore, everyone decided to hide inside the spirit ship. Although the spirit ship might be frozen, it was still better than being frozen to death. After daybreak, they would first return to Jinsha Bay to repair themselves. At that time, they would think of a way to get the spirit ship out. Everyone was naturally very excited because they had saved their lives. However, Altar Master Deng and the others could not help but sigh when they thought of Yun Chujiu who had sacrificed herself for them. That night, everyone almost did not sleep. They waited until the sun rose and the temperature was slightly higher before they got off the spirit ship and returned to Golden Sand Bay. When they arrived at Golden Sand Bay, the Golden Sand Bay guards were very excited. Altar Master, everyone, it's great that all of you are fine. Altar Master Deng and the others were not in the mood to say anything and entered Golden Sand Bay. Golden Sand Bay was only a temporary station, so it was not too big. Everyone was cold and tired, so they went straight to the backyard to rest. As soon as they reached the backyard, the door of a room was pushed open, and a person covered in cotton cloth climbed out. It should be a person, right? The cotton cloth was originally white, but now it was dyed red with blood. They could only vaguely see that it was a human shape, only a pair of eyes were exposed. At this moment, 2 guards came out from the house. It seemed that they wanted to bring that person back into the house, but that person let out a hoarse voice. Altar Master Deng, you're still alive. Altar Master Deng and the others trembled. This voice, could she be Chojiu? Ding Shenwu, and Wei Ba had already run over. Team leader, is the team leader you? You're still alive. 2 lines of clear tears instantly flowed from that person's eyes. Are you guys really still alive? That's great, that person fainted before he could finish his words. Everyone had already confirmed that the person wrapped like a cocoon was Chojiu. She was actually not dead. Moreover, she had appeared in Golden Sand Bay. What was going on? Just as everyone was puzzled, a guard clicked his tongue and said, "What's going on?" 2 hours ago, we heard a loud sound. When we came out to check, we found that this person had smashed into the city gate. TSK, that was really tragic. Her entire body was covered in blood, and her clothes and wounds were frozen together. If it wasn't for the fact that her eyes could still move, we would have thought that she was a dead person. We saw that the clothes on her body were the clothes of Ascending Heaven Doc, so we carried her inside. Since we didn't have a woman here and her clothes were frozen, we had no choice but to use a cotton cloth to bandage her briefly. Altar Master Deng did not have the patience to continue listening and roared, "Are they all dead? Hurry up and carry Chojiu inside so that she can be treated properly." Chapter 55-32 Compassion for the World. Altar Master Deng only had one thought. No matter how Chojiu got to Jinsha Bay, the most important thing now was to keep her alive. Everyone else had the same thought. This Chojiu was already in such a state, but the first thing she said was, "It's great that you're still alive." What kind of compassion was this? Even the masters of the 10,000 Buddha's sacred hall might not be as compassionate as her. What a kind and good girl. If such a good girl died, it would be a loss to the divine enlightenment continent. However, everyone was not good at medicine, so they could only take out some pills to stop the bleeding and feed them to Yun Chujiu. Altar Master Deng quickly informed Heaven's Doc to send a doctor over. A moment later, Yun Chujo slowly woke up and then closed her eyes. A moment later, she opened them again and muttered, "I'm not dreaming. Everyone is not dead." When everyone saw this, they could not help but feel even more touched. Ding and the others were already crying. How could there be such a kind person in this world? It was really touching. While Ding was crying, she also felt that something was not right. This ugly Jiao even cheated the red skeleton inside the illusion sky banner. No matter how she looked at it, she did not look like such a kind person. However, everything in front of her was real, she had really seen a ghost. Superintendent Zhang said with a face full of shame, "Little girl, we are all still alive. This time, it's all thanks to you." Altar Master Deng also said from the side, "Yes, we are all still alive. Don't worry, I will definitely cure you." Yun Chujia's eyes suddenly shone like the stars. Really? We are really still alive. That's great. Everyone wanted to ask her why she had come to Jinsha Bay, but seeing her like this, they had to endure it. It was better to wait until her injuries were better before asking. At this time, Yun Chujo said with some difficulty, "Altar Master Deng, can you guys leave for a while? I'll get Sister Ding to help me change my clothes and apply some medicine on my wounds." Altar Master Deng naturally would not refuse. He quickly brought everyone out and only Ding was left in the room. Shen Wu and Wei Ba wanted to stay as well. Wei Ba was stunned when she saw Yun Chujo winking at her. She immediately dragged Shen Wu, who was crying like a cat, out of the house. She dragged Shen Wu to the door of the house. She seemed to be worried about Yun Chujia's injuries and could not bear to leave. In fact, she was standing at the door to prevent anyone from entering the house. Yun Chujo heard Shen Wu's low sobs, and the corner of her mouth curled under the cotton cloth. Then, she said to Ding "Take off the cotton cloth on my body. These idiots wrapped it so tightly that I almost couldn't breathe." Ding how did this energetic look like someone who was about to die? Although she was puzzled, she quickly took off the cotton cloth on Yun Chujia's body. She saw that Yun Chujia's dress was covered in blood, and it looked exceptionally terrifying. Most importantly, where was her hair? Where were her eyebrows? Why did she become bald? Just as she was stunned, Yun Chujo glared at her fiercely. "Turn around, I want to change my clothes." Ding subconsciously turned around and heard the rustling sound of changing clothes behind her. He thought to himself, "That's not right. She was injured so badly, but she could still change her clothes by herself. Alright, turn around." When Ding turned around, Yun Chujo had already put away the cotton and dirty clothes. Lying on the bed, she crossed her legs and asked, "Tell me about what happened after I bravely lured away the heavenly lightning." Ding Chapter 55-33 was even more cruel to her. Ding was dumbfounded. Didn't they say that she was seriously injured? Didn't they say that she was going to die soon? She had never heard of anyone who was going to die who had the time to cross their legs. And she had never heard of anyone who was seriously injured who had the time to ask about her great achievements. However, she thought of a possibility. Could it be that she was going to die? She opened her mouth and asked, "Team leader, are you okay?" Yun Chujo rolled her eyes. "What can happen to me? Hurry up and tell me. Otherwise, the doctor who will treat my injuries will be here soon." Ding suppressed the shock in his heart and told her everything. He also described everyone's reactions. Yun Chujo narrowed her eyes, feeling very satisfied. It seemed that the effect of her sacrificing herself to save others this time was quite good. If she used it properly, her journey to the divine enlightenment continent would be much smoother. After being struck by the heavenly lightning, she deliberately fell into the water and then dived to the bottom of the water. Although the heavenly lightning kept striking her, the power of the lightning on her body was greatly weakened due to the weakening of the floating ice and the river water. She absorbed all the power of the heavenly lightning effortlessly. It was simply wonderful. Although her cultivation stopped at the peak of the 9th level of Spirit Extinguisher, she was still very satisfied. After all, one could not be too greedy. This fellow thought about it. If she directly returned to the spirit ship, she really could not come up with a convincing explanation. She pondered for a moment. Since the spirit ship was damaged, everyone would definitely return to Golden Sand Bay to repair it. She climbed out of the crack before the ice completely froze and then staged a good show herself. However, this good show had just been put on for the first half of the show. The second half of the show would soon start. This guy thought for a moment. Under Ding Er's horrified gaze, he gritted his teeth and cut his arm and face a few times. Then, he rubbed the blood stains on the quilt and the corner of his mouth. He curled the corner of his mouth and said to Ding later, the doctor will come. Do you know what to say? Ding was already scared silly. He mumbled, no, I don't know. Yun Chujio rolled her eyes and gave him a few instructions. Ding nodded in a daze. His gaze landed on Yun Chujio's clothes that had been dyed red again, and he couldn't help but shiver. This Chojio was ruthless to others, but she was even more ruthless to herself. Such a ruthless character would definitely become someone superior. In the future, no matter what she said, she would cling onto her thigh tightly and not let go. An hour later, the sky-reaching Doc's doctor arrived. Ding was stunned to see that Hei Shinjio, who was originally glowing red, was now as pale as death. Her forehead was also covered with fine beads of sweat, coupled with the blood stains at the corner of her mouth. No matter how he looked at it, she looked like she was about to die. After the doctor checked Yun Chujio's pulse, he also wanted to check the injuries on Yun Chujio's body. Ding wiped his tears and said, Doctor, there are almost no good places on the team leader's body. Her clothes and flesh are almost stuck together. I have already helped the team leader with the external wound medicine. If you open her clothes again, it will inevitably hurt again. You can directly prescribe some external medicine. I will apply it again in a while. The doctor did not insist. Firstly, Ding Er's words were reasonable. Secondly, it was not convenient for the girl in front of him. Therefore, he sighed and said, the external injuries are not serious. She will recover after applying the medicine for a few days. The main reason is that her meridians are severely damaged and the cold air has entered her body. If the root of the illness is left behind, it may affect her future cultivation. When Altar Master Dang and the others heard this, they felt even more guilty. If it was not for saving them, this little girl would not have suffered such a disaster. They had let her down. Chapter 55-34 Chojio had an epiphany. If you need any medicinal pills or herbs, just say the word. You have to treat her no matter what, Altar Master Deng said in a deep voice. The others also chimed in, asking the physician to do his best to treat Yun Chujio and not to affect her future cultivation. The physician sighed. Altar Master, it's not that I haven't tried my best. It's just that this lattice injuries are too severe, and my ability is limited. I can only use pills to suppress the cold chi in her body temporarily. If I want to completely eradicate and repair her meridians, I'll have to find someone else. Altar Master Deng nodded. Just try your best. After the spirit ship is repaired, I'll bring the little girl to the Divine Enlightenment continent and find someone to treat her properly. Hei Shinjo could not help but feel a little annoyed. She had played too much. If she had known this would happen, she would not have let Go Wei Batsao cause such a serious injury. But fortunately, she had a backup plan. The physician took out some pills and handed them to Ding Er. After instructing him on how to take them, he left. Although the others were full of questions, they didn't ask much when they saw Yun Chujie's pale face. After all, there was still time in the future. It wasn't too late to ask after she was better. As soon as everyone left, Ding Er saw the half-dead Hei Shinjo stretch lazily before taking out a meat bun and eating it. Ding Er, Hei Xinjiu threw a few meat buns to Ding blinked her eyes, and whispered a few words to Ding Yar. Ding Er's eyes were wide open, and his mouth was wide enough to fit a meat bun. He could not believe what he had just heard and stuttered, You, aren't you afraid that you're going too far and that there's no way to end this? Yun Chujiu bared her little white teeth. Don't worry, no one will doubt such a kind and good girl like me. You've performed well this time, be obedient, and it'll bring you to fly with me. Ding thought to himself, you can't not bring me, I've already made up my mind to hug your thigh. Yun Chujiu asked Ding to take out the ointment and shake it to cover the fragrance of the meat buns. 2 hours later, this guy sat up cross-legged and gestured at Ding with his mouth. Ding pinched his thigh and shouted while running out, Team leader has had an epiphany. Team leader has had an epiphany. Shen Wu and Wei Ba, who were guarding the door, were shocked. They did not know what was going on in the room. They pulled Ding and asked, What did you say? Ding resisted the urge to roll his eyes and shouted in surprise, the team leader had an epiphany. Shen Wu and Wei Ba were both surprised and happy. They rushed into the house and saw Yun Chujiu sitting cross-legged on the bed. There was a faint halo around her body, and her pale face had become rosy. Shen Wu was completely dumbfounded. She really thought that Yun Chujiu was seriously injured before. Now that she saw Yun Chujiu had an epiphany, she was so happy that she cried. Wei Ba, who was standing at the side, had guessed a little, but she did not say anything. She pretended to have the same expression as Shen Wu. Jin Shabei was not big to begin with. In addition to Ding Er's loud voice, it did not take long for Altar Master Deng and the others to gather around. What? What did you say? Altar Master Deng asked in disbelief. Altar Master, the team leader had already fallen into a deep sleep. She suddenly sat up and seemed to be in a daze. I thought that she had been frightened previously. I didn't expect that she would start meditating with her legs crossed. Then, there was a faint glow on her body. I finally understood that she had had an epiphany. The heavens really have eyes. Our team leader is a good person who has good karma. Ding said with a sobbing tone. Chapter 55-35 Good Karma. Altar Master Deng and the others were both surprised and happy when they heard that. In order to prevent Yun Chujiu from having an epiphany, Altar Master Deng and the others only peeked inside the door a few times and did not enter the house. When they saw that Yun Chujiu was indeed sitting cross-legged and meditating just like Ding had said, and there was a faint halo surrounding her body, they immediately believed it without a doubt. 2 hours later, the light on Yun Chujiu's body shone brightly. She had actually broken through. 7th level Spirit Extinguisher, 8th level Spirit Extinguisher, 9th level Spirit Extinguisher. Heavens, she had actually broken through 3 levels in one go. Wasn't this an epiphany? Everyone sighed. As expected, the heavens are fair. Miss Cho Jio sacrificed herself to save others. Naturally, the heavens will not mistreat her. Now it seems that not only has her injuries healed, she even broke through 3 levels in one go. That's right. I thought that Lady Cho Jio had a narrow escape this time. I didn't expect that not only was she safe and sound, but she had also gotten a blessing in disguise. Therefore, a person has to do good deeds, and good deeds are rewarded. A kind and good lady like Cho Jio should have such good luck. Lady Cho Jio is the kindest lady I've ever met in my life. Ding heard everyone's discussion and resisted the urge to roll his eyes. Sooner or later, all of you will know how ignorant you are. At this time, Yun Chujiu had already opened her eyes. She raised her arm and moved her legs. Then, she said happily, My injuries are all healed. I also broke through. Am I dreaming? Altar Master Deng smiled and said, Of course I'm not dreaming. This is all an epiphany. What did you comprehend just now? Yun Chujiu said a little embarrassedly, It's nothing. I just suddenly felt that something in my head suddenly opened up. I seem to have become indifferent to life and death. Superintendent Zhang of the Academy of 10 Directions stroked his beard and said, "That's not strange. The little girl sacrificed herself to save others and experienced this life and death catastrophe. Naturally, she has become indifferent to life and death. This is also her good fortune." The others also sighed. Altar Master Dang had specially asked the doctor to come over and check Yun Chujia's pulse. The doctor's eyes widened in disbelief. She has really recovered. This is really something to congratulate. When everyone heard this, they immediately believed Yun Chujia's epiphany. Ding Er's heart was filled with pity for these people. These people had been fooled by Choujio. If one day they found out the truth, they would probably die of anger, right? When everyone saw that Yun Chujiu had recovered, Altar Master Dang asked everyone's questions. "Choujio, quickly tell us what happened. Weren't you struck by lightning into the water? How did you end up in Jinsha Bay?" Yun Chujiu scratched her head, and then her expression froze. She took out a mirror and was stunned on the spot. Only then did everyone realize that Yun Chujia's hair and eyebrows were gone. They immediately felt guilty. This was a huge blow to a little girl. After a long while, Yun Chujia's lips curled into a stiff smile. "No, it's nothing without hair. It's cool." Everyone felt even more guilty. This ugly ninth lady was too kind. She must have said this because she was afraid that they would feel guilty. How could there be such a kind and good lady in the world? This time, even Ding Er was fooled. He thought that Yun Chujiu was pretending to be strong. After all, even a tough woman like her cherished her hair very much. The doctor took out a small porcelain jar and said, "Little girl, don't be too sad. This ointment has hair growth effects. If you apply it on your scalp, your hair will grow out very quickly." Chapter 55-36 turned out to be fishing for a big fish. Yun Chujiu thanked her profusely and took the small porcelain jar. She took a deep breath and said, "That day, I was not struck by lightning. Instead, I accidentally fell into a crack in the hard ice. Fortunately, I had a few waterproof beads on me, but it was too cold in the water. Even if I used my spiritual power to protect myself, my body was still cut by the sharp edges of the hard ice. Moreover, the temperature of the water was too low, and I was almost frozen stiff. Just when I thought that I would definitely die, I didn't expect to be entangled by a giant ice wristband." A giant ice wristband? Everyone's heart immediately jumped to their throats. Was this an attack from a sea beast? I was about to take out my dagger to cut that giant ice wristband, but I discovered that the owner of the giant ice wristband was actually the giant ice wristband that I encountered during the beast tide. At that time, I was scared half to death, thinking that it was going to eat me. In addition to the cold and injuries on my body, my head buzzed, and I actually fainted. By the time I regained consciousness, it was already time for the Golden Sand Bay guards to discover me. As for what happened in the middle, I have no idea. Perhaps it was the giant ice wristband that saved me, or perhaps something else happened in the middle, Yun Chujiu said with some confusion. When everyone heard this, they immediately started discussing all kinds of possibilities. In the end, they came up with a truth that everyone agreed on. Giant ice wristband had helped Choujio get rid of its enemy, Manager Yu of Thousandwood Workshop, in return, so it had saved Choujio this time. Although the underwater temperature was extremely low, the sea beasts naturally had ways to keep them warm. That was how they had saved Choujio's life. As for why Choujio had fallen on the city gate previously, it must have been because giant ice wristband had thrown her out of the air vent. After all, giant ice wristband's tentacles were very long. Although it was a little strenuous, it could still be done. Although the truth was flawed, Choujio had been unconscious at that time, so it was understandable that she didn't know the process. Besides, the process wasn't important. The most important thing was that they and Choujio were fine. Thus, the matter was put behind them. Of course, there were still repercussions. For example, "Little girl, what are your plans for the Divine Inspiration Continent? Why don't I use some connections to help you find a job in the Myriad City Alliance? Little girl, although our Iron Blood Massacre Alliance is all about fighting and killing, we also have some jobs that are responsible for logistics. If you are interested, I can recommend you. Little girl, although your aptitude is average and your cultivation is really low, I can use some connections to let you become an audit student at the 10 Directions Academy. Are you interested? Little girl, our Divine Enlightenment Academy also has an audit student slot. Logically speaking, you need to pay a huge amount of spirit stones to have such an opportunity. However, I can help you get a slot. Would you consider it? Ding Er's face was filled with envy, jealousy, and no hatred. The main thing was, he did not dare to hate. She thought to herself, no wonder Cho Jio wanted to make such a scene. It turned out that he wanted to fish for a big fish. Although they were now quasi-residents of the Divine Enlightenment continent, they were at the bottom of the hierarchy in the Divine Enlightenment continent. The Alliance of 10,000 Cities, the Iron Blood Alliance, the 10 Directions Academy, and the Divine Enlightenment Academy that these people were talking about were all at the top of the Divine Enlightenment continent. They were not qualified to enter at all, and they were not even qualified to be servants. But now, these forces had opened their doors to Cho Jio. What kind of dog shit luck was this? Chapter 5537 Could money be used to solve a problem? Yun Chujio politely thanked these people for extending an olive branch. She said that she would think about it, but she did not agree immediately. Ding Er's heart ached when he saw this. She actually had to think about such a great opportunity that she had dreamed of. Comparing people was so infuriating. Hei Shinjio was in a good mood. She had sacrificed herself for others to cover up the fact that she was not afraid of being struck by lightning. She did not expect to become a good girl that everyone praised by accident. After the epiphany, her breakthrough had a reason to see the light. Most importantly, she could also choose a shelter. After all, the Divine Enlightenment continent was the lair of the God-Devil Temple. Although she had not been exposed yet, she would be exposed sooner or later. It was necessary to have a shelter. This was a great deal. She was so impressed with herself. How could she be so smart? How could she be so smart? She was too smart to be human. This guy was narcissistic for a while, and then he began to wonder where he was going. She was not very familiar with these forces, and Ding did not know much about them. After all, she had only heard about the things that she knew. Since the information was limited, she would just use the method of elimination. First of all, she could not go to the Alliance of 10,000 Cities no matter what. It was said that the two dead manager you had a backer. If she went to the Alliance of 10,000 Cities, wouldn't she be looking for trouble for herself? It was said that the Iron Blood Alliance often took on dangerous missions. Even if it was a logistical task, she might have to go on expeditions with the team sometimes. She was now a weak person, and if she was not careful, she would lose her life, therefore, she could not go. Then, there were only the 10 Directions Academy and the Divine Revelation Academy. It was said that both of them were equally famous, but which one should she go to? To be honest, this fellow was tired of going to the academy. It was really boring to be able to easily get first place every time. However, she had to admit that entering the academy was her best choice at the moment. She could have a shelter and learn some useful things. The silly girls in the spiritual beast bags looked at each other. Where did their black-hearted master get his confidence from? And he got the first place so easily. She was only an audit student this time. She was not even an official student. How could she get the first place? Of course, these silly girls had learned their lesson. Only a fool would tell the truth. Yun Chujia's gaze fell on Ding Er. Then she thought of Shen Wu and Wei Ba at the door. She had a plan in her heart. She met with Superintendent Zhang of the Divine Enlightenment Academy and Superintendent Zhang of the 10 Directions Academy respectively. She suggested that Ding and the other two should enter the academy together with her, even if it meant spending some spirit stones. Superintendent Zhang was very reluctant to reject Yun Chujia's request. Little girl, to be honest, apart from a huge donation, the auditing students of the Divine Enlightenment Academy also need to have a certain background. Making an exception to accept you is already my greatest authority. Superintendent Zhang hesitated for a moment. Normally, each person has to pay 20 million upper-grade spirit stones and have a deep background. The best I can do is to help them create a fake background, but the spirit stones have to be paid in full. Yun Chujo pretended to hesitate for a moment and then said, "I'll let them think of a way to deal with the spirit stones." "Thank you, Superintendent Zhang. If they need me in the future, I won't refuse." Although Superintendent Zhang had targeted her at the beginning, it was just a verbal argument. Later, he took the initiative to express his goodwill, which meant that this person was still trustworthy. As for 20 million upper-grade spiritual stones per person, could a matter that could be solved with money be considered a problem? Chapter 55-38. As Superintendent Zhang heard Yun Chujo say this and knew that she had chosen the 10 Directions Academy. He was immediately very happy. This little girl had accepted his favor and settled the karma. It was also to prevent him from having inner demons in his cultivation in the future. This result could not be better. Moreover, he truly felt that the little girl in front of him was very good. Whether it was her intelligence and calmness during the ice shock or her self-sacrifice later on, it all showed that this little girl was extraordinary. Even if her aptitude was a little lower and her cultivation was a little lower, she might have some opportunity to soar to the sky in the future. It was always good to form a good relationship with her. After Superintendent Zhang left, Yun Chujo told Ding and the others about what had happened. Ding could not believe his ears. "Team leader, what did you say?" I can also enter the 10 Directions Academy." "Did I hear wrongly? Is what you said true? Are you really bringing us along?" Shen Wu and Wei Ba were also pleasantly surprised. However, the three of them quickly frowned. The reason was very simple. They lacked money. Although they were once the favored sons of heaven and had brought a lot of spirit stones with them, but 20 million? That was too much. They had been so engrossed in cultivation that both their families and sects would give them the best resources, so they would not be distracted by mundane tasks like spirit stones. When they ascended, they were already so excited that they would not even think about bringing more spirit stones. Hence, it was a little awkward now. It was the first time that they were stumped by spirit stones. Since they had already ascended, it would not be easy for them to return to their original continent. Hence, the road back to their original continent was basically blocked. The three of them were so regretful that their intestines turned green. If they had known this would happen, they would have brought more spirit stones over no matter what. However, what was the point of saying all this now? Yun Chujo smiled as she looked at the three of them who were burning with anxiety. She bared her little white teeth and said, "You guys don't have it, but I do. Have you forgotten that I have robbed a lot of storage rings?" Ding and the rest were immediately delighted. That's right. Previously, Chojiao and the Red Skeleton had dug a lot of storage rings for those candidates. There would definitely be a large number of spirit stones inside. Shenwu hurriedly said, "Team leader, lend me some spirit stones first. I will definitely repay it twice in the future." Ding and Wei Ba also expressed their stance and then looked at Yun Chujo with eager eyes. "No problem. Come, put your fingerprint on the loan slip and I will lend you the money." Yun Chujo smiled amiably, but for some reason, Ding and the others felt a cold breeze behind their backs. They felt that she was digging a hole, and it was a hole that would last for thousands of years. However, they had no other choice now. Besides, they had already decided to cling on to Yun Chujia's thigh long ago, so it was fine to dig a hole. Thus, the three of them put their fingerprint on the loan slip that Yun Chujo had written. Yun Chujo looked at it and put it away in satisfaction. This fellow was secretly happy. Loan slip. This was a contract to sell one's body. After Yun Chuzhou put away the loan slip, she said, "Leave the spirit stones with me first. When we reach the 10 Directions Academy, I will pay for you." The three of them didn't doubt him and immediately nodded in agreement. 10 days later, the spirit ship was repaired, and everyone set off for the Divine Enlightenment continent again. On the way, they were all trembling in fear, afraid that something bad would happen to them again. However, nothing unusual happened this time, and they successfully arrived at the other side of the Eternal River. The moment they stepped on the river bank, they felt relieved. Altar Master Deng took them to the city closest to the Eternal River, the border city, and handed over the identity documents for Yun Chuzhou and the others. Chapter 55-39, Yan Qingqing. Everyone began to register their identities in an orderly manner. Shen Wu's original name was Gu Lianyi, and Wei Bas' original name was Qin Linglong. When it was Ding Er's turn, Yun Chuzhou finally found out that Ding Er's original name was Ding Wenru. Yun Chuzhou, a good name, a good name. It didn't seem at all out of place with Ding Er. When it came to Yun Chuzhou, this fellow straightened his back and announced the best name he had come up with over the past few days, Yan Qingqing. This guy felt that he was too compatible with this name. Initially, he had wanted to call her Yan Juedai, the prettiest, the ugliest, and so on, but in the end, he felt that they were too high profile. It was Yan Qingqing who was more low profile. Very soon, the identity document with Yan Qingqing's name on it was handed to Yun Chuzhou. This guy was very satisfied with the name on it. He had finally gotten rid of this lousy name, Cho Jiu. After the identity document was processed, everyone went their separate ways. Their future situation would depend on their own luck. Altar Master Deng had to go to the headquarters of the Alliance of 10,000 Cities to report this matter. In addition to the fact that school was about to start at the Academy of 10 Directions, he had to give Yun Chuzhou a few instructions and pass his voice transmission talisman to her. "Little girl, if you need my help in the future, feel free to send me a message. As long as I can help, I will definitely do my best." Altar Master Deng said these words with extra sincerity. It was completely different from the perfunctory words he said in the heavenly dock. Yun Chuzhou smiled and said, "Altar Master, I will remember it. Please take care." The others also came over to bid farewell to Yun Chuzhou. Even Chen Shi, who had recovered his original name, Mei Xinyan, also came over to greet her. When Yun Chuzhou heard her original name, the corner of her mouth twitched. Mei Xinyan. Heartless. This name was very appropriate. After everyone had left, Yun Chuzhou and the other three followed Superintendent Zhang of the Academy of 10 Directions to the Academy of 10 Directions. Yun Chuzhou was a sweet talker and knew how to cause trouble. She quickly coaxed Superintendent Zhang until he was beaming with joy. He felt that his taste was really good. If the Academy of 10 Directions missed out on such a good student, it would be a great loss. "Superintendent Zhang, please introduce the situation of the Academy of 10 Directions to me. Also, what are the conditions for becoming a serious student of the Academy of 10 Directions?" Superintendent Zhang gave a brief introduction of the Academy of 10 Directions. It was nothing more than bragging about its great achievements. The Academy of 10 Directions and the Divine Enlightenment Academy were both known as the top academies on the Divine Enlightenment continent. Due to their geographical location, they were commonly known as the Divine Enlightenment Academy of the South and the North. Regardless of fame or strength, they were equally matched. Superintendent Zhang changed the topic. "If you want to become an official student of the 10 Directions Academy, you need to pass several rounds of assessment. Only the best of them are qualified to enter the 10 Directions Academy." Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes. "Then can we participate in the assessment?" Superintendent Zhang was stunned. Although he did not want to discourage her, he still said, "Little girl, although you are very smart, your cultivation is really too poor. Do you know what the lowest cultivation requirement is for the entrance examination of the 10 Directions Academy?" Superintendent Zhang didn't really want Yun Chuzhou to answer, so he continued, the lowest cultivation requirement is the 5th level of the Divine Enlightenment. The lowest qualification for the entrance examination is the 5th level of the Divine Enlightenment. Usually, those who can pass the examination are above the 6th level of the Divine Enlightenment. You don't even meet the lowest qualification for the entrance examination. Moreover, the assessment of the 10 Directions Academy will officially begin tomorrow. We won't be able to make it in time. Superintendent Zhang was afraid that he would be a blow to Yun Chujia's confidence, so he comforted her, although the gap is a little big, you don't have to belittle yourself. As long as you work hard in the future, the 10 Directions Academy's listening students will be very good after graduation. Chapter 55-40 Powerful Self-Confidence. Yun Chuzhou smiled. Superintendent Zhang, you don't have to persuade me. I always believe in one thing. Although the starting point is not something I can choose, how far I can go and how high I can climb in the end is something I can decide for myself. When Yun Chuzhou said this, her voice was not very high and her tone was not very strong. However, Superintendent Zhang's heart was shocked. Because he saw a strong confidence in Yun Chujia's eyes, he did not know what to say for a moment. No, Ding Wenris' mouth twitched. No wonder she dared to call Yan Qingcheng by her name. She was really confident. The reason why Ding Wenru knew that the name Yun Chuzhou was calling Yan Qingcheng was a fake name was very simple. Yun Chuzhou wrote a bunch of names on the paper like Yan Juedai, the most beautiful, and Dugu Qiuqiu. She asked her to help her choose. This Yan Qingcheng was chosen by Ding Wenru for Yun Chuzhou. Yun Chuzhou did this on purpose. Sometimes, it was easier to form an alliance if she left some small evidence to her companions. Besides, she knew very well that her fake identity would probably be revealed soon, so she didn't care. One day, when the flying spiritual device passed by a valley, Superintendent Zhang smiled and said, the examinees from the 10 Directions Academy are here to participate in the assessment. Superintendent Kai, who is in charge of the assessment, and I are good friends. I will bring you to see it. In fact, Superintendent Zhang bringing them to see it was one thing. The most important thing was that the examinees would be staying here for 10 days. Superintendent Kai had nothing to say to the other lecturers, so when he learned that Superintendent Zhang happened to be passing by, he invited him to stay here with him for a few days. Superintendent Zhang thought that since school had not started yet, there was nothing much to do when he returned to the academy. He might as well catch up with his old friends here, so he readily agreed. When the two of them met, Superintendent Kai discreetly sized up Yun Chuzhou and the other three, then looked at Superintendent Zhang with a questioning gaze. The girl in the middle is called Yan Qingcheng. This time, I met an ice quake at Zhenggu River. If it wasn't for her, you wouldn't have been able to see me. So, I specially recruited her to be an audit student. When I return to the academy, I will report to the dean. The other three have some background. Although they aren't very prominent, because of Yan Qingcheng's plea, and because they can afford to pay the donation fee, I reluctantly agreed, Superintendent Zhang explained. Superintendent Kai was not very interested in the matter of Ding Wenru and the other two. Although the 10 Directions Academy had some background requirements for audit students, there would be someone who pulled strings every year. As long as the donation fee was affordable, everyone turned a blind eye. However, he was very interested in what Superintendent Zhang had said about the ice quake. He hurriedly asked Superintendent Zhang to explain the matter in detail. Superintendent Zhang immediately told him about what had happened that day. Then, he sighed, if it wasn't for Qingcheng's intelligence and decisiveness, not to mention me, not a single person on that boat would have survived. However, a good person has a good reward. After this incident, Qingcheng received an epiphany. Not only did she break through 3 levels of cultivation, but her injuries were also completely healed. Superintendent Kai was stunned when he heard this. The incident had been too thrilling and bizarre. If he did not know his good friend well enough to not lie to him, he would have thought that he was listening to a story. However, he thought of a crucial problem. Yan Qingsheng had broken through 3 levels with an epiphany, and she looked like she was only at the 9th level of the Spirit Extinguisher realm. Then, wasn't she at the 6th level of the Spirit Extinguisher realm before? This was too low. Chapter 55. 41 People are shameless and invincible in the world. Superintendent Kai thought to himself, although this Yan Qingsheng was brave, her talent seemed to be very ordinary. Unless there was a great opportunity, she would not be too outstanding. Although Superintendent Kai thought this in his heart, he did not show it on his face. Instead, he praised Yun Chuzhou a few times. There were many things that could only be etched in one's heart through personal experience. Bystanders would never feel the same, just like Superintendent Zhang and Superintendent Kai. At this moment, the other lecturers all came forward to greet Superintendent Zhang. Although the position of superintendent was not considered to be at the top of the hierarchy in the Academy of 10 Directions, it was still higher than the position of lecturers. Those lecturers naturally did not dare to neglect it. Superintendent Zhang exchanged a few pleasantries. After those lecturers walked to the side, he asked, "Brother Kai, how many examinees are you in charge of this time?" The number of examinees that the 10 Directions Academy applied for each year was uncountable. After the initial selection, there would still be many people. Therefore, the first 2 rounds of the assessment would be divided into 2 rounds. Superintendent Kai was in charge of 1 batch of examinees. The initial 5,000 people. After the first round, there are only 3,000 people left. It is estimated that after this round, there will be about 1,000 people left, said Superintendent Kai. Ding Wenru and the other 2 were speechless. The elimination rate was too high. It seemed that it would be very difficult for the Academy of 10 Directions to enter. Superintendent Zhang asked again, "What is the assessment for this round?" Superintendent Kai smiled and said, "It is quite simple. Leave them in the rocky valley for 10 days and calculate the points according to the demonic cores and spiritual herbs used to hunt demonic beasts. Those ranked in the top 1,000 will enter the next round and the rest will be eliminated. There are 3 more days until the deadline. Well, go back to the academy together then." Yun Chuzhou pursed her lips in her heart. She had said that entering the academy was the most boring. This kind of assessment was so old-fashioned that there was nothing new about it. Superintendent Zhang seemed to want to talk to Superintendent Kai alone for a while, so he said, "The 4 of you can wander around freely, but don't go too far." Yun Chuzhou naturally couldn't ask for more. She responded respectfully and took Ding Wenru and the other 2 to walk around. Team leader, the 10 Directions Academy really lives up to its reputation. The acceptance rate is too low. It's only the second round, and 4/5 of the people have been eliminated. Ding Wenru sighed. Yun Chuzhou glanced at her. "Please call me Yan Qingsheng in the future, or Qingsheng." "Ding Wenru, don't you know whether this name is real or not? Besides, you are so beautiful. How can you say yes when others call you Qingsheng?" Ding Wenru didn't blame her for complaining. Yun Chuzhou had been taking the transfiguration pill. Her current appearance could only be called delicate and pretty. She was nothing like Qingsheng. Ding Wenru complained in her heart, and then she said, "Qingsheng, you said that the examination of the 10 Directions Academy is so difficult, so those who enter the 10 Directions Academy must be the favored ones of the heavens. Will we, the listening students, be ostracized and ridiculed by them?" Gu Lianyi and Qin Linglong also showed a worried look. They had always been smooth sailing in the previous continent, and the surroundings were full of flattery and envy. At the thought of the difference in entering the 10 Directions Academy, they could not help but feel a little worried. Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. What's there to worry about? How could it be worse than the situation in the heavenly dock? Remember this, people are shameless and invincible. You are shameless, what are you afraid of? Ding Wenru, Gu Lianyi, Qin Linglong, the 3 of them looked stiff, but they felt that what Yun Chuzhou said made sense. In order to survive in the heavenly dock, they had lost their so-called face a long time ago. In that case, what were they afraid of? Chapter 55-42 From Ding Wenru and the other two were suddenly enlightened, and they immediately forgot about their worries. Out of curiosity, the four of them quickly strolled to the valley entrance barrier. Without any psychological burden, Ding Wenru and the other two quickly started chattering. They were very curious about everything in the Divine Enlightenment continent. Hei Xinjiu occasionally chimed in, but she didn't say anything after that. It wasn't that she was pretending to be deep, but that she was suppressing the evil Gowei Batsao. Although Gowei Batsao couldn't speak, Yun Chujiu could still guess that this guy wanted her to enter the rocky valley. Hei Xinjiu was so angry that she kept twitching. Gowei Batsao, you'd better give up this idea as soon as possible. Let's not talk about whether Supervisor Kai will agree or not. Even if he does, it's full of dangers. Do you want me to go in and die? Gowei Batsao kept trying to act cute. Seeing that Yun Chujiu still had no intention of giving in, this guy directly seized control of her body. Yun Chujiu was so angry that she was about to explode. This was her body. Hers. Why did this damn Gowei Batsao want to take it away and take it away? What did she do to provoke such a damn grass? After Gowei Batsao gained control of her body, she subconsciously shook her arm. When Ding Wenru saw it, she asked, Qingcheng, are you feeling unwell? Gowei Batsao blinked her eyes and ignored her. Instead, she quickly ran toward the place where Superintendent Zhang was. Ding Wenru and the other two were baffled and could only follow behind. Superintendent Zhang, Superintendent Kai, I want to enter the rocky valley to broaden my horizons, okay? Gowei Batsao said pitifully. Superintendent Zhang frowned and said, nonsense. Demonic beasts run rampant in the chaotic valley. Any one of them can take your life. There is no room for negotiation. Gowei Batsao was furious. He really wanted to strangle this old man with a leaf. It squeezed out 2 drops of tears. It said, Superintendent Zhang, I know that this request is a bit too much, but when I had an epiphany earlier, an image flashed in my mind. It was the rocky valley in front of me, so I wanted to go in and look for an opportunity. Moreover, previously Superintendent Kai didn't say that if the person who went in was in danger, he could crush the jade plate and be teleported out. As long as he was careful, there wouldn't be any danger. Superintendent Zhang, I beg you, please agree with me. Yun Chujiu looked at her pitiful lackey and was so angry that she was about to explode. Damn Gowei Batsao. She actually lied without blinking. Who did she learn it from? She was so angry. In her heart, she begged Superintendent Zhang not to agree. She didn't want to go into the chaotic valley. If the jade plate was not useful, wouldn't she die in there? However, she had really misjudged Superintendent Zhang's good impression of her. When Superintendent Zhang heard that it was related to an epiphany, he immediately looked at Superintendent Kai. Brother Kai, since that's the case, can you make it easy for her to go in and broaden her horizons? Superintendent Kai pondered for a moment and said, it's not impossible, but I have to make it clear in advance. If anything happens to this little girl, don't blame me. Of course, Superintendent Zhang agreed readily. Immediately, the superintendent took out a jade plate and handed it to Gowei Batsao. After you activate this jade plate, you can enter the barrier in front. If you encounter any danger, you can crush the jade plate and be teleported out. Gowei Batsao pretended to thank him, then turned around and ran toward the barrier at the entrance of the valley. Ding Wenru and the other two wanted to ask a few questions, but Gowei Batsao ran so fast that the 3 of them couldn't chase after her. They could only look at her retreating figure with a puzzled expression. Chapter 55-43, What is Gowei Batsao looking for? If it wasn't for the fear of being exposed, Gowei Batsao would have been jumping around. Ha! It was indeed the smartest grass in the world. Even if the darn girl didn't agree, it could still achieve its wish. However, when Gowei Batsao arrived at the entrance of the valley, he realized that he had no way to activate the jade token in his hand. He could only say in a low voice, help me go in and find what I want. I will definitely not mistreat you. Yun Chujo sneered, Go Weiba, what right do you have to command me? Do you think that you can do whatever you want just because you can seize control of your body? Let me tell you, I will fight with you today. At worst, it will be a life and death struggle. No, people will die and grass will die. Go Wei Butsao did not expect Yun Chujia's attitude to be so tough this time. It felt a little regretful, but it was useless to regret. It said humbly, Great Aunt, no, little ancestor, please help me this time. I promise that I will never take control of your body again. Yun Chujo snorted and did not say anything. Go Wei Butsao said a lot of nice things, but Yun Chujo did not intend to let go. Go Wei Butsao was going crazy. Go Wei Butsao gritted its teeth and said, If you help me get what I want, I will tell you where I came from. Yun Chujo was a little tempted. She and the pretty boy could not find out the origin of Go Wei Butsao. If they could find out what the hell it was, maybe they could get it out of the Dantian. Is what you said true? Of course. If I lie to you, you can just torture me when the time comes. I won't say anything else, Go Wei Butsao said resolutely. Alright, just this once. If there's a next time, HMPH. Seeing that Yun Chujo agreed, Go Wei Butsao quickly returned the control of her body to Yun Chujo and began to act cute. Yun Chujo took a deep breath and activated the jade token in her hand. The enchantment cracked open and Yun Chujo walked in. The scene inside was not much different from the outside, but there were many stones scattered on the ground. Yun Chujo suddenly remembered what Go Wei Butsao was looking for. She could only return the control of her body to Go Wei Butsao and asked, What are you looking for? Go Wei Butsao could not hide its excitement and said, Looking for a rock, looking for a rock. Yun Chujo, in the past, she could understand that this fellow was looking for herbs, but now, he was looking for a rock. What did that mean? What kind of rock? Can you sense the exact location? Go Wei Butsao shook its head like a rattle drum. I'm still a little baby, so I'm not sure where exactly. If there's a suspicious area, you can sniff each rock. Yun Chujo, sniff the rocks one by one. Was she a dog? Forget it. When the time comes, I'll just give it control of the body and let it sniff by itself. After Yun Chujo took back control of the body, she carefully walked into the valley. She couldn't be careless. Any demon beast that came out from here would have a higher cultivation level than her. Although she could bluff, not all demon beasts would be fooled. Fortunately, the demonic beasts at the edge were probably all killed by the examinees. Yun Chujo walked for half a day and did not encounter any powerful demonic beasts. Yun Chujo was about to eat something when Go Wei Butsao began to tremble in excitement. It was obvious that it had discovered a suspected target. Yun Chujo turned her head to look. There were a few stones scattered not far away. It would be good if she could find the target among them. That way, she could crush the jade token and leave. Chapter 55-44 Yun Chujo walked over and wanted to let the Go Wei Butsao sniff on its own. However, considering that the Go Wei Butsao could not protect itself after possessing it, she had no choice but to sniff the nearest rock with a cold expression. The Go Wei Butsao waved its leaves continuously, indicating that it was not this rock. Yun Chujo could only sniff the other rocks in turn. In the end, all of them were rejected by the Go Wei Butsao. Yun Chujo was furious. Do you even have a clue? Since there wasn't a single piece, why did you let her sniff it? Next, the Go Wei Butsao let Yun Chujo sniff a lot of rocks, but none of them were correct. Hei Xinjiu was so angry that she was about to explode. She even suspected that the Go Wei Butsao was deliberately toying with her. She used her spiritual sense to scold the Go Wei Butsao, and the Go Wei Butsao kept acting cute. It was also very wronged. It was only a baby now, so its ability was limited. After a while, Go Wei Butsao found another rock. Yun Chujo bit the back of her teeth and moved closer to one of the rocks to smell it. At this time, she heard messy footsteps. Yun Chujia's heart moved. Could it be that there were examinees coming? She didn't want to cause any trouble. Coincidentally, the rocks here were bigger, so she hid behind one of the rocks. She restrained her aura and looked outside through the gap between the two rocks. The first 7 men ran over. Their faces were filled with panic. Following closely behind were more than 10 men. Don't go too far. If you force me again, I'll crush the jade token and go out. One of the 7 men said while holding the jade token in his hand. Crush the jade token. Then go ahead and do it. No one will stop you. One of the men who chased after him said arrogantly. The person who had spoken at the beginning clenched his teeth and crushed the jade token immediately. However, he found out in despair that he was not teleported out. The other 6 people also crushed the jade token in their hands when they saw that, but they were not teleported out. What's going on? What's going on? It's very simple. Because Brother Bai has activated the void-ending talisman just now, your teleportation jade tokens will naturally lose their function. Cut the crap. Hand over the monster pills and medicinal herbs that you have obtained. Otherwise, you won't be able to leave this chaotic stone valley alive. The 7 people's faces were filled with grief and indignation. There were only 2 days left for the assessment. If they handed over the things in their hands, they would have no hope of entering the 10 Directions Academy. However, they did not dare not hand them over. After all, nothing was more important than their lives. Immediately, the 7 of them handed over their things and ran away in a sorry state amidst the laughter of those people. Brother Bai, you are still far-sighted. We have already robbed over 100 examinees. Not only will we be able to pass the second round, but our ranking will also be far ahead. This will be of great benefit to the 3rd round of the assessment. Of course. Brother Bai is the famous moon-treading young master. If it was not for taking care of us, Brother Bai would not have to go through so much trouble. That makes sense. With your cultivation and family background, it wouldn't be a problem for you to take the top spot. Now, you even took out something as good as the void-denying talisman for us. We must follow your lead in the future. Yun Chujia's gaze fell on the moon-treading young master. Her pupils constricted. Why did this person look familiar? But she couldn't remember who exactly he looked like. Just then, someone asked curiously, Brother Bai, I heard that your aunt's cousin has returned. Did he apply for the 10 Directions Academy or the Divine Enlightenment Academy? Chapter 55-45 Yun Chujia's guess young master Ta Yu's face immediately darkened. He's just a bastard. He's not worthy to be my cousin. The person who had spoken earlier saw his displeased expression and quickly echoed, yes, he's just a bastard who can't stand the limelight. It's said that he grew up on a lower continent. No matter which academy he applied to, he wouldn't be able to pass. Young Master Ta Yu's expression softened slightly, and he said with a hint of ridicule, Grandfather was afraid that I would be disadvantageous to him, so he made him apply for the Divine Enlightenment Academy. However, a trash like him wouldn't be able to pass at all. Brother Bai is right. He can't be compared to you at all. He's just a bastard. This time, the top scorer of the 10 Directions Academy is none other than you. Brother Bai, you must protect us in the future. Of course. You are all my people. I will naturally protect you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thought of ways to get you a good ranking in the second round of the assessment. As the crowd spoke, they escorted that young Master Moon stepping away. He must have gone to find the next target to rob. Yun Chujio suddenly widened her eyes. She remembered who this young Master Moon stepping looked like. He actually looked somewhat like Lan Luochen. Could it be that the bastard they were talking about was Lan Luochen? The old fox of the Lan family said that Lan Luochen's maternal family was very powerful. It seemed that young Master Moontreading was from an extraordinary background. She was most likely right. This guy was relieved. It would be great if Londregs went to the Divine Enlightenment Academy, so he would not pester her like a dog's skin plaster. She did not feel much about the robbery of young Master Tayu's group. After all, she had done the same thing before. On the path of cultivation, the strong preyed on the weak. The strong were respected. Those who were robbed could only admit that they were unlucky. Even if they went out and made a fuss about it, they would not be pitied. Instead, they would be ridiculed. After those people left, Yun Chujo continued to smell the stones bitterly. In the end, there was still no rock that Goei Batsao was looking for in this rock. Yun Chujo could only continue to walk forward. Perhaps her luck had run out, and she had just walked out when she met a demonic beast that looked very similar to a bear. There was a star-shaped mark between the brows of the demonic bear, and the color was very bright. Yun Chujo had heard from Ding that the brighter the color, the higher the level. This demonic bear was at least a level 8 star mark, and it might even be a level 9. Yun Chujo wished she could tear the Goei Batsao and chew it up. How could her small arms and legs be a match for this thing? Although she might be able to escape with all her might, this way, the commotion would definitely be huge. It would be bad if her secret that could not be seen was exposed. Therefore, she had to outsmart it. Just as this fellow was thinking about how to trick the bear in front of him, he did not expect more than a dozen people to run over from afar. One of the women said in surprise, "It's actually the golden-eyed desolate bear, go." In a short moment, the dozen people ran in front of Yun Chujo and surrounded the golden-eyed desolate bear. Yun Chujo found these people too pleasing to the eye. They came at the right time. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and did not leave. These dozen people were clearly a small group. Following them was a guarantee of her life. Only a fool would leave. Hence, this fellow threw a few fireballs at the golden-eyed desolate bear. Although it was useless, it meant that she had contributed. The golden-eyed desolate bear's skin was rough and thick. Even though it was surrounded by so many people, it still managed to hold on for more than an hour. In the end, it let out an unwilling howl and died. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.